We often find ourselves caught in this grand illusion, don't we? This pervasive belief that for monumental breakthroughs, for truly remarkable changes in our lives or, our careers, we need equally monumental overhauls. We think we need to flip our entire world upside down, muster some Herculean effort, or maybe wait for that single life-altering epiphany. But what if I told you that the secret to achieving those extraordinary results, to truly transformative change, lies not in the colossal, but in something incredibly small, something atomic?
That's not just a poetic notion. It's precisely the groundbreaking premise of the book we're really diving deep into today. Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it really stands out, as a powerful, practical, and profoundly insightful self-improvement book because it offers a fundamentally different yet incredibly actionable perspective on personal growth and achievement. This isn't about chasing those fleeting bursts of motivation or relying on grand, unsustainable gestures. No, instead, it's about understanding and implementing a really insightful system for building good habits, systematically dismantling the bad ones, and ultimately achieving your most ambitious goals far more effectively and, importantly, with greater longevity.
Right. So our mission today is to truly unearth the most important nuggets of knowledge, the most actionable, implementable insights from Atomic Habits. Think of this deep dive as your focused, curated shortcut to becoming genuinely well-informed on this transformative topic. Without feeling completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information out there, we're going to unpack how those tiny, seemingly insignificant, consistent improvements, well, when applied intelligently and strategically, they don't merely add up in a linear fashion. No. Instead, they actually compound over time, much like interest accruing in a well-managed savings account. It's a profound shift in thinking, really. And it has the power to dramatically alter your future trajectory, whether you're aiming for personal mastery, professional success, or just a more fulfilling daily life. Okay, so let's really lean into this core idea first. James Clear fundamentally challenges our traditional notions of success, doesn't he? I mean, for so long, we've been conditioned to think about setting these big, audacious goals, aiming for the stars, visualizing that massive win, hitting that huge target. But he elegantly flips that on its head with a statement that, well, at first glance, might strike you as quite counterintuitive. He asserts, success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. I mean, that's a pretty radical reframing of how we often approach our ambitions, isn't it?
It truly is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most profound, actionable implications of his entire body of work. Clare crystallizes this perfectly when he states, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Now, what's so incredibly fascinating here is that while the vast majority of people intensely focus on their goals, whether it's, say, to lose 20 pounds, write a best-selling novel, or build a multi-million-dollar business, Clear argues that the goal itself isn't the primary differentiator between those who succeed and those who don't. Think about it. In nearly any competitive scenario, be it a championship game, an election, or even two individuals starting similar businesses, both sides often share the exact same goal: to win. To succeed.
Right.
What truly separates them, what ultimately determines who achieves that coveted goal, isn't just the ambition, but the meticulously designed systems of daily habits they consistently employ. The goal provides direction, yes, absolutely, but the system is what actually gets you there.
So it's almost like the destination you're aiming for is important for plotting your course, sure, but the real power lies in the daily journey itself, and more specifically, the reliable vehicle, the process you're using to get there. It's about building a robust, repeatable process that moves you incrementally forward, even if those increments seem almost imperceptibly tiny from day to day. This begs the question, though, why is a well-designed system, this relentless focus on process, so much more powerful, so much more reliable than just relying on sheer willpower or those fleeting, momentary bursts of motivation we all experience?
Well, because willpower and motivation, while certainly having their place, are fundamentally finite resources. They just are. They fluctuate wildly based on our energy levels, our mood, the external circumstances we face, even the quality of our sleep the night before. You've probably experienced this yourself, right? Some days you feel like you can conquer the world. Other days, just getting out of bed feels like a monumental effort. A system, however, is different. It's a consistent, repeatable process that operates largely independent of your emotional state. It's a structure you've built that nudges you towards the desired action. When you have a strong system in place, the desired outcome becomes not just probable, but almost inevitable over time. It shifts the focus from hoping for a grand outcome to consistently executing a series of small, small, manageable, almost automatic actions. This means that even on days when your motivation reservoir is completely depleted, your system still provides that gentle, consistent push forward, ensuring that progress continues, brick by tiny brick. It bypasses the need for constant internal negotiation, that should I, shouldn't I debate.
Ah, okay. Here's where it gets really interesting, connecting those small atomic actions to truly remarkable, almost unimaginable results. Think about it like money in a savings account. You mentioned that. Those tiny, consistent deposits you make, even if they seem utterly insignificant individually, don't just add up linearly. They add up exponentially over time thanks to the undeniable magic of compounding interest. And Clear suggests this isn't just a financial principle, is it?
Exactly. No, it applies directly and profoundly to personal development and skill acquisition. Clear emphasizes that a mere 1% improvement in something daily doesn't just result in 365% improvement over a year. That's not how it works. Because of the power of compounding, it actually leads to a staggering 37 times improvement by the end of the year. It's not just addition, it's multiplication. Exponential growth. Conversely, a 1% decline daily, a tiny slippage, can lead to a near total erosion of progress over the same period. It works both ways. This concept is vital because it compels us to embrace a long-term vision and encourages persistence, especially when immediate results are invisible. It shows that true, lasting results aren't merely about the sum of your efforts, but the product of your consistent efforts multiplied by time. It encourages you to trust that those seemingly imperceptible changes you make today are actively laying the intricate groundwork for massive, often sudden, breakthroughs in the future. The challenge, of course, is that compounding often takes time to reveal itself, which is where many people lose faith, unfortunately. You don't see the curve immediately. Only the flat line at the beginning.
So what does this all mean for us, the listener, right now? If we're making this significant shift from primarily focusing on distant goals to rigorously focusing on the daily systems that get us there, then the next logical and perhaps even more profound question Clara poses is this. Are we not just changing what we do, but fundamentally changing who we are? This brings us to his incredibly powerful concept of identity-based habits, which feels like, well, the psychological bedrock of the entire system.
This is truly a cornerstone of atomic habits and, in my opinion, one of its most transformative and often overlooked ideas. It really is. Clear explains that true, lasting, and sustainable behavioral change rarely comes from simply forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do, or from solely trying to achieve an external outcome. No. Instead, he posits that it stems from an internal shift, a change in your self-perception, a redefinition of your own identity. Most people approach habit change from an outcome-based perspective. They'll say, I want to run a marathon, or I want to lose 30 pounds, or maybe I want to write a book, all outcome-focused. Clear suggests we flip this on its head and instead focus on the person we want to become.
So instead of focusing on the outcome running a marathon, you reframe it and focus on the identity. I am a runner, right? Or instead of, I want to lose weight, it's, I am a healthy person. It's a subtle linguistic shift, sure, but the internal resonance feels incredibly powerful, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. And the specific example he uses is quite stark. Don't say, I want to read more. Instead, say, I am a reader. Now, why does this distinction matter so profoundly? Because when your actions align with your core identity, the habit becomes less about external effort, less about trying, and more about simply living out who you believe yourself to be. If you genuinely see yourself as a reader, then reading isn't a chore. It's just, well, it's what a reader does, naturally. It becomes a natural, almost effortless extension of your self-concept. This internal alignment profoundly reinforces consistency and makes habits feel natural, almost automatic, because you're literally just being yourself. This is the difference between actions that drain your willpower and actions that feel intrinsically motivated, that come from within.
Wow, okay. That's a game changer. Yeah. If you truly internalize, I am a healthy person, then choosing a fresh salad over fried food isn't some agonizing struggle of willpower where you're like depriving yourself. It's simply what a healthy person would choose. It feels congruent. It removes that tremendous internal friction, that constant debate in your head. But how do you actually begin to internalize something like, I am a runner if you've been sedentary your entire life? Or I am a disciplined writer if you've been procrastinating for years? It's not about waking up one day and simply deciding it to be true, right? There's often an imposter syndrome at play, I imagine.
You've hit on a critical point there, yes.
Yeah.
It's not magic, it's methodical. Absolutely. It's about consistently casting those small votes for the new identity, even when it initially feels like you're just playing a role. Each time you put on those running shoes, even if you just walk for 2 minutes, you're gathering empirical evidence for this new self. You're voting. Each time you sit down to write, even if you only manage one sentence, you're voting for, I am a writer. This process, slowly but surely, rewrites your internal narrative. It builds belief. Embracing a new identity can significantly help overcome resistance or procrastination because it reframes the action entirely. You're not trying to do something difficult. You are being someone who does this naturally. This fosters a strong sense of internal locus of control, meaning you believe you have control over your own life. Rather than being driven by external circumstances or, fleeting motivations, you're driven by an internal conviction about who you are, making it feel less like a chore and more like an affirmation, like confirming who you are. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Your actions reinforce your identity, and your identity reinforces your actions, solidifying the new self-image and the corresponding habits. It's a fundamental shift from getting something to being someone, and it's really the engine for long-term sustainable change.
Okay. So we firmly established the why focusing on systems over goals is transformative, and why redefining your identity is absolutely key to sustainable change. That makes so much sense. That's the profound philosophical and psychological shift Atomic Habits offers. Now let's get into the how. This is the tangible toolkit, right? James Clear doesn't just give us inspiring philosophy. He provides a practical, step-by-step framework for not just building good habits, but also strategically dismantling bad ones. He distills this framework into what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change.
That's absolutely right. And these 4 laws aren't just, arbitrary rules he made up. They are meticulously designed to manipulate the underlying habit loop, that neurological feedback mechanism that governs all our behaviors, whether they're beneficial or detrimental. Every single habit, from the simple act of brushing your teeth to the complex ritual of checking social media, follows a predictable cycle. A cue, which acts as a trigger. This leads to a craving, which is the motivational force. This then prompts a response, which is the actual action you take. And finally, a reward, which provides a positive feeling and reinforces the loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. Clear's 4 laws essentially provide us with a foolproof framework to optimize each stage of this universal loop, allowing us to, engineer our habits for success.
Okay, let's break them down. Law number 1, make it obvious. At first blush, this seems incredibly straightforward. Just make the thing you want to do visible. But there's a surprising amount of depth and practical application here.
Indeed. Yeah, the core concept is deeply rooted in our psychology. Our brains are highly attuned to visual and environmental cues. They just are. The more obvious and visible you make the cue the trigger for a desired habit, the more likely you are to initiate it. Think of it as out of sight, out of mind for bad habits, and in plain sight, in your mind, for good ones. Simple but powerful. One of the most effective techniques Clear introduces for this is called habit stacking. This involves strategically linking a new habit you want to build to an existing habit you already perform consistently, almost automatically, without thinking.
Okay. So if I already brush my teeth every morning without fail, I can use that as an anchor, like a hook, for a new habit.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to think about it. The classic example Clear uses is, after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 1 minute. The existing habit of brushing your teeth acts as the immediate, undeniable cue for the new habit of meditating. It's built right in. You're not relying on willpower to remember to meditate. The sequence becomes automatic. It just flows. Other examples could be, after I pour my first cup of coffee, I will write down my top 3 tasks for the day. Simple. Or, after I close my laptop at the end of the workday, I will do 10 squats. You're leveraging the momentum and established neural pathways of an existing routine to seamlessly integrate a new one, which reduces the need for decision-making or conscious effort right at the point of action. It makes it easier.
And then there's environment design, which sounds incredibly intuitive, but is paradoxically often completely overlooked by people trying to change.
It is. It really is. This involves consciously and deliberately structuring your physical environment to prime you for success, effectively making the desired habit the path of least resistance almost inevitable. Clear suggests practical steps, like keeping a book on your pillow if you want to read at night, or perhaps placing your running shoes and workout clothes right by your front door if you plan to go for a morning run. Make it obvious. You might also put healthy snacks like fruit or pre-cut vegetables right there on the counter, making them the most obvious choice. While, unhealthy treats are hidden away in a cupboard, out of sight, the visual cue of the book, the shoes, or the healthy food acts as a potent reminder and significantly reduces the friction to start. By proactively designing your surroundings, you're nudging yourself towards desired behaviors without relying on sheer willpower. which, as we discussed, is a finite resource. It runs out. It's about creating a physical space that actively supports your intentions, making the desired action not just visible, but almost unavoidable.
All right, so visibility really plays an immense role in initiation then. If you don't see the cue, you're much less likely to even think about doing it. It almost pre-commits you to the action before the decision point even arrives.
Precisely. It's about making the decision to act ahead of time by meticulously setting up your environment. So when the moment comes to perform the habit, the choice is already kind of made for you by your surroundings. You remove the need for conscious deliberation, which is, let's face it, where most habits falter. It's passive commitment through thoughtful design.
Okay, moving on to law number 2. Make it attractive. This one feels like it's speaking directly to our primal desires, doesn't it? Our brain's deep-seated love for pleasure and novelty.
It absolutely is, yeah. This law cleverly taps into the core psychology of craving and the brain's innate desire for dopamine and pleasure. Our brains are fundamentally wired to pursue things that are rewarding, things that make us feel good. That's just biology. The core concept here is to align desired habits with something inherently attractive, or to consciously make the desired action itself more appealing by associating it with a positive experience. One of the most effective techniques for this is called temptation bundling.
Ah, that's where you pair something you want to do, something you inherently enjoy, with something you need to do but might not be so thrilled about.
Right. Yes, exactly. The quintessential example given is, I'll watch Netflix only after doing 10 push-ups. Free. You take an action you crave watching your favorite show and you strategically bundle it with an action you need to do the push-ups. This works because your brain very quickly starts to associate the initial effort of the push-ups with the anticipated enjoyment of Netflix. You're effectively leveraging a high-frequency, high-enjoyment activity to make a lower-frequency, lower-enjoyment activity significantly more appealing. Other examples could be listening to your favorite podcast only while cleaning the house, or maybe calling a friend only while out for a walk. You link the two.
So I'm essentially bribing myself, but in a highly structured, effective, and, well, brain-friendly way. That makes sense. You're saying the anticipation of the reward makes the actual initial effort more palatable, maybe even exciting.
Exactly. You are creating an artificial craving for the beneficial habit by linking it to something your brain already strongly desires. This brilliantly exploits the dopamine system. It's crucial to understand that dopamine isn't just about pleasure itself. It's overwhelmingly about the anticipation of pleasure. Think about a gambler, right? The true rush isn't just the moment of winning. It's the anticipation of the jackpot, the near misses, the belief that the next spin could be the big one. That's dopamine at work, driving that seeking behavior. So when we use temptation bundling, we're essentially hijacking that anticipation system, making the initial, less appealing habit a necessary bridge to the highly anticipated rewarding activity. Your brain starts to crave the process because it knows the good stuff is coming immediately afterward. It transforms the feeling of, look, I have to do this into, okay, I get to do this to get to what I really want. You can also make a habit attractive by joining a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior, like joining a running club if you want to become a runner. The social attractiveness can be a huge motivator, too.
All right, law number 3, make it easy. This one feels like it's directly contradicting all those no pain, no gain mantras we've been fed for years. This law prioritizes repetition and just showing up over intensity or striving for perfection every single time.
It's a profoundly effective counterpoint to that often damaging all-or-nothing mentality. It really is. The core concept here is to drastically reduce the friction, the perceived effort, involved in starting a new habit. Clear emphasizes that consistency is infinitely more important than perfection or intensity, especially in the early formative stages of habit building. The overarching goal is to get the repetitions in, to build undeniable momentum, not to achieve a flawless, exhausting performance every single time. He powerfully highlights the 2-minute rule. Any new habit should take less than 2 minutes to start.
Less than 2 minutes. That seems almost, well, comically easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What is the genius, the hidden power behind setting such an incredibly tiny threshold?
The genius lies in its ability to completely bypass and disarm procrastination and inertia, which are, let's face it, the twin enemies of progress. Most of us resist starting something because we envision the full, daunting, overwhelming task ahead. If your goal is to read a book, that immediately feels like a massive, time-consuming commitment. It's intimidating. But if your goal is simply to read one page or even just read one sentence, that feels utterly effortless. Anyone can do that. Clear's penetrating insight here is that the real challenge isn't performing the habit itself, it's starting it. It's overcoming that initial hump of resistance. Once you start, momentum often carries you forward far beyond those initial 2 minutes. It gets you going. So, read 1 page daily is vastly superior to waiting for a large block of time to read 30 pages only occasionally. Other examples: put on your running shoes instead of run 5 miles, or open your textbook instead of study for 2 hours. Just start.
So it's really about strategically removing the psychological barrier to entry, isn't it? Just get the ball rolling. Even if it's the tiniest push, the objective isn't the perfect workout. It's just getting to the gym door, or maybe just putting on your shoes.
Precisely. It builds both consistency and, crucially, a profound belief in your ability to follow through. Every single time you perform that 2-minute version of the habit, you are casting another vote for the identity of someone who performs that habit. Back to identity. It's not about the immediate output or intensity. It's about the act of showing up consistently. It prevents the dreaded 0 days where you do absolutely nothing and ensures you maintain forward momentum, building that critical foundation of repetition necessary for the habit to become automatic. Your brain learns through consistent repetition, not through sporadic, intense bursts of effort. That's key. Friction reduction is also key here. Prep your coffee maker the night before, lay out your workout clothes, clear your desk for tomorrow's work, make the process as effortless as possible.
And finally, law number 4, make it satisfying. This brings us squarely back to the reward at the very end of the habit loop, and the crucial role it plays in making a habit stick.
This is an absolutely critical law, yes. Because for any habit to truly stick and become ingrained, it needs to feel immediately rewarding in some way. Our brains are hardwired for immediate gratification. It's just how we operate. While the long-term benefits of good habits are often delayed, you don't get rich overnight by saving or instantly fit by one workout. The immediate positive feeling or feedback is absolutely crucial. It reinforces the behavior and significantly increases the likelihood of future repetition. One of the simplest yet most effective techniques Clear advocates is using habit trackers or simple check marks.
The simple act of ticking a box on a calendar, maybe marking an X on a planner, that really provides enough satisfaction to make a difference. It seems so small.
It profoundly does. Yeah, don't underestimate it. The visual proof of your progress, the simple, tangible act of marking that check mark, it provides an immediate hit of dopamine, a visceral sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. It feels good. It's a small internal message to your brain that says, good job, that felt good, let's do that again. It serves as a visible reminder of your consistency, and it organically builds motivation to keep the streak alive. You don't want to break the chain. Beyond that, allowing yourself a small, immediate, and appropriate reward after completing the habit can also be powerful, provided, of course, it aligns with your overall goals. Don't reward exercise with a giant cake, right? For example, enjoying a specific podcast only after you've finished your daily writing session, or maybe a relaxing bath after a tough workout. The key is that the reward needs to follow the behavior immediately. So your brain forms that positive, almost instantaneous association between the action and the good feeling.
So ending on a positive note is absolutely essential for locking that habit in for future repetitions. Even if the big long-term payoff is far down the road, you need those consistent, immediate little wins along the way to keep you engaged and on track.
Exactly. Intrinsic satisfaction, the feeling of accomplishment, of having done something beneficial or a small, immediate positive feeling is crucial. It effectively closes the habit loop on a high note, making it far more likely your brain will want to repeat the cycle. This is why when you work out, the feeling of energy or the endorphin rush immediately after is so critical. It's satisfying. Or for a writer, the satisfaction of seeing a new paragraph or chapter on the page, or simply the feeling of having completed a focused writing block. It makes the behavior feel worthwhile in the short term, thereby fueling the long-term commitment. Without that immediate feedback, the brain struggles to connect the effort to a desirable outcome. It needs that quick win. Now, this raises a really important question that many listeners might be asking themselves. If these 4 laws of behavior change are so universally effective, why do so many people still struggle so much with building good habits, and perhaps even more so with breaking bad ones? It's a common, almost universal experience, right? To start strong, full of enthusiasm, and then watch that momentum slowly fizzle out. Clear addresses this head-on by meticulously analyzing the common reasons why habits fail, even with the best intentions.
Yeah, and it often comes down to a few very predictable, very human pitfalls, right? Like, we expect instant payoff. For one, we live in an age that constantly reinforces instant gratification.
Absolutely. That's a huge one. One of the primary and most discouraging reasons habits fail is the expectation of seeing immediate dramatic results. People often anticipate a linear improvement, believing that if they put in effort, the results should be visible and proportional within days or maybe a few weeks. When they don't see those dramatic changes, they become discouraged, they lose faith, and, well, they give up. It's a classic misjudgment of how change truly works. It's rarely linear. Another major pitfall is trying to make too many significant changes at once, trying to do everything. This leads to what Clear calls overload, which inevitably leads to burnout. It's just too much. You spread your willpower and focus too thin across multiple new demands, and the entire edifice collapses because you simply don't have enough mental energy to sustain it all.
Right. And then there's the almost primal issue we discussed earlier, the absence of a robust system itself, just relying on willpower, on that feeling of being motivated as a long-term strategy.
Precisely. So many people fall into the trap of relying solely on an initial burst of fleeting motivation instead of designing robust supportive systems. When that initial surge of enthusiasm wears off, and it always does because motivation is ephemeral, it comes and goes. There's nothing left to propel them forward. The system isn't there. Clear offers a profound and almost countercultural counterpoint to this common reliance on motivation, stating, "You do not need to be motivated. You need to be consistent." This isn't just a clever turn of phrase, it's the real, actionable maverick mindset of the entire book. It implies that consistency, systematically built into your routine, is a far more reliable and potent engine for progress than the unpredictable, unreliable fuel of motivation. Consistency creates identity, remember, and identity drives lasting change.
That's a truly powerful statement because it immediately takes the immense pressure off feeling constantly inspired or in the mood. It really does. It truly liberates you to just show up and do the work, regardless of how you happen to feel on any given day. And that liberating idea ties in beautifully with another absolutely crucial concept Clear introduces. For understanding the often nonlinear and sometimes frustrating nature of progress, the plateau of latent potential. Imagine you're putting in consistent effort daily. You're lifting weights, you're practicing a new skill, you're writing a little bit, but the results are utterly invisible. Nothing seems to be happening. It's like pushing a giant boulder uphill. Nothing seems to move for ages, and then suddenly, with one more push, it starts to roll, gaining momentum rapidly.
That analogy perfectly captures it. Yes. Clear vividly describes this as the valley of disappointment. It's that profoundly frustrating period where you're diligently putting in consistent effort, you're stacking habits, making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. But you are not seeing the visible results you so desperately expected. It feels like nothing is working. The lesson here is paramount. Trust the process. You have to trust it. Habits, and indeed all significant growth, take time to pay off. The seemingly invisible work you do in that valley isn't wasted at all. It's accumulating, building up beneath the surface. And when it finally reaches a critical, often unseen threshold, the results compound rapidly, leading to exponential breakthroughs that appear to come out of nowhere, but are in fact the direct culmination of all that painstaking, unseen work. It's the difference between linear accumulation and exponential growth. It's that curve taking off.
Wow. So understanding this concept of the plateau is absolutely key then. For maintaining consistency and preventing giving up during those incredibly discouraging phases when you feel like you're getting nowhere fast. It allows you to persevere, to keep casting those votes, even when the immediate feedback loop isn't delivering the big dramatic wins you crave. It fundamentally shifts your focus from that often frustrating pursuit of immediate gratification to the profound power of the long-term compounding effect.
Exactly. It equips you with the crucial mental resilience to keep going when progress feels agonizingly slow or entirely invisible. It reframes the apparent lack of results not as personal failure or futility, but as a necessary phase of quiet accumulation before the breakthrough. It's about having deep, unwavering faith in the compound effect and the systemic nature of true, sustainable progress. Many people, sadly, quit right before the breakthrough because they don't understand this natural curve of growth. They give up in the valley. It's a fundamental principle of mastery in any domain, really. Now, what's truly fascinating here, and forms the scientific bedrock of all these principles, is that every single habit, whether it's beneficial or detrimental, runs through this predictable, universal cycle that we briefly touched on earlier. The habit loop. Cue, craving, response, or reward. This isn't merely a theoretical model, it's the fundamental neurological and psychological basis for all habit formation in the human brain. The cue triggers an urge or craving, which creates the motivational force. This then leads to a response or action. And that action provides a reward, which delivers a positive feeling and crucially reinforces the entire loop, making it more likely to happen again in the future.
So understanding the universality of this loop is really the master key, isn't it? Not just for building new positive habits, but perhaps even more powerfully,
for systematically dismantling those deeply ingrained, unwanted bad ones.
Precisely. The elegance and profound utility of this framework is that if you want to destroy a bad habit, you simply need to strategically break any one of these steps in the loop, any link in the chain. Conversely, to build a good habit, you strengthen each step. Let's take a common, relatable bad habit, like mindlessly checking your phone for social media. We all do it, right? The cue might be boredom, a moment of idle downtime, or maybe a notification sound. Bing. The craving is for novelty, social connection, validation, or simply a quick distraction from whatever task is at hand. The response is the physical act of picking up the phone, unlocking it, and opening the app, the habitual action. The reward is seeing new content, receiving likes or messages, or simply successfully escaping that feeling of boredom or discomfort for a moment. Every single bad habit, from biting nails to impulsive shopping, can be mapped to this exact loop.
Okay, so if our goal is to stop doing something, we literally just flip those 4 laws on their head, right? It makes perfect sense that if you want to make a good habit obvious, you'd want to make a bad habit invisible.
That's the exact practical guidance Clear provides. Yes. He gives us the inverse of the 4 laws, specifically tailored for breaking bad habits, and they directly attack each stage of the habit loop. First, to break a bad habit, you doing. Make it invisible. This means actively removing or hiding the cue. If the trigger isn't present, the craving is far less likely to be triggered, and the habit won't even enter your conscious mind. Out of sight, out of mind. Next, you make it unattractive. This involves actively reducing the craving by changing your perception of the habit or by associating it with negative consequences or feelings. Make it seem less appealing. Then, you make it difficult. This is about deliberately increasing the friction of the response. Make the action itself require more effort, more steps, more time. Add barriers. And finally, you make it unsatisfying. Ensure the reward is undesirable or even actively punishing, so your brain doesn't want to repeat the loop. You want the experience to end on a negative note, teaching your brain not to seek it out again.
Okay, let's use that social media example from the book. That's a good one. How would these inverse laws specifically apply there in a practical sense?
All right, let's break down the classic social media example from the source. Remove apps. Turn phone grayscale. Make it boring. So, remove apps directly applies. Make it invisible. If the social media app isn't on your home screen, or maybe even deleted entirely, the visual cue of its icon isn't there. This makes it far harder to mindlessly open it. You've removed the immediate tempting trigger from your line of sight, forcing you to consciously search for it. You could even put your phone in another room while working, or just out of reach. Then, turn phone grayscale works to make it unattractive. Our brains are wired to find vibrant colors stimulating and rewarding. They grab our attention. By removing those vibrant colors, you make the visual experience of your phone and apps less stimulating, less engaging, and thus less attractive to your brain. This significantly reduces the craving for that pop of novelty and reward. It literally makes your phone feel less exciting, less fun. Now, making it difficult could involve logging out of apps every single time you use them, so you have to re-enter your password each time. That's friction. Or perhaps putting your phone in another room when you're trying to focus, or even physically placing it in a locked box with a timer. Seriously, people do this. You are deliberately increasing the number of steps required to access the bad habit, adding significant friction to the response, making it less convenient than simply not doing it. And finally, make it unsatisfying. If you do find yourself mindlessly scrolling, pause and consciously reflect on how it actually makes you feel after you've finished. Perhaps bored, anxious, envious, or regretful of the time wasted. Focus intently on those negative long-term consequences or the missed opportunities. Making the reward of scrolling feel hollow, unfulfilling, or actively undesirable rather than pleasurable, it's about auditing the true emotional and productivity cost of that habit.
Right. Why is making a bad habit boring or difficult often so much more effective and more sustainable than just relying on sheer willpower, which, as we've established, eventually runs out?
Well, because willpower is a constant internal battle you fight in your mind, and it's absolutely exhausting over the long term. It drains you. Applying the inverse laws, however, is about fundamentally changing the battlefield itself. You're changing the environment, the context. You're not relying on your internal strength to resist temptation constantly. You are deliberately designing your environment and your routines to make the bad habit inherently difficult, inconvenient, or simply unappealing. You're essentially automating the avoidance, engineering it out. If it's difficult to do, you're less likely to do it. Simple as that. If it's unattractive, you'll crave it less. This systematic environmental approach tackles the problem at its roots rather than constantly fighting the symptoms with brute force willpower. It frees up your valuable willpower for more important things, like focusing on building those good habits. It's about building a better mousetrap, not just trying harder and harder to catch the mouse.
These aren't just clever lines or, inspiring slogans. They're truly guiding principles that underpin the entire philosophy of atomic habits. And they serve as powerful reminders. The book is packed with them. One that really resonates, tying directly back to our discussion on identity, is every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. That one really hits home.
That quote is profoundly impactful, isn't it? Because it elevates every single small choice from just an isolated event into a conscious reaffirmation of your desired self. It provides an immediate internal reward for good behavior, reinforcing that identity shift. When you choose to read a single page, you're not just reading, you're casting a tangible vote for I am a reader. When you choose to go for a 2-minute walk, you're voting for I'm an active person. Over time, these votes accumulate, and as we discussed, your identity subtly but powerfully shifts, making the habits feel natural, effortless, and simply who you are. It's a continuous process of self-reinvention through small, consistent acts. Each action matters.
Yeah. And then there's the profound long-term perspective encapsulated in this one. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. This really speaks directly to that plateau of latent potential we just explored, doesn't it?
It connects beautifully, yeah, and provides immense comfort during those challenging periods when results aren't visible yet. This quote encourages patience, trust, and persistence, especially during those phases when consistent effort doesn't immediately yield visible results. It wisely redirects your focus from the immediate, often discouraging outcome to the positive direction you're headed. Are you pointing the right way? If your trajectory is one of consistent 1% improvements day after day, week after week, even if today's results are modest, your future is undeniably mathematically brighter. The trend is what matters. It emphasizes the profound power of compounding and the enduring importance of process over a fleeting outcome. It's a call to trust the journey, even when the destination feels distant or unseen.
And my personal favorite, I think, which takes so much pressure off and helps combat that perfectionism trap, is you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent.
That quote serves as such a liberating antidote for so many people.
Yeah.
Because perfectionism is so often the silent killer of progress. It stops us before we even start sometimes. It allows for mistakes, for slip-ups, for off days, recognizing them as simply part of the learning process. Rather than valid reasons to abandon a habit entirely, it gives you permission to be human. It highlights that the cumulative effect of consistency, even imperfect consistency, vastly outweighs sporadic bursts of intense, flawless effort. It's about showing up again and again, even if you can only manage the 2-minute version of your habit that day. It reiterates that repetition is indeed the mother of mastery, not flawlessness. You simply need to get back on track quickly after a lapse. Don't let one missed day become 2 or spiral into a week. Just resume.
So, given everything we've unpacked and discussed, who should actually dive into atomic habits? Is it just for, life hackers or self-help junkies trying to optimize every micro moment? Because from what we've discussed, the principles seem incredibly universally apply everywhere.
They absolutely are universal, and that's the beauty of this book. It really is. While it's certainly a powerhouse in the self-help genre, its applicability transcends any single niche. Absolutely. For example, students can use these principles to design highly effective daily study schedules, integrating short, consistent study blocks and review sessions, thereby making their learning more consistent and far more effective than last-minute cramming. Entrepreneurs can apply them to build essential business disciplines like consistent prospecting and client follow-ups or daily product development iterations, ensuring sustainable growth instead of sporadic, burnout-inducing efforts. Creators, writers, artists, musicians, coders can use the 2-minute rule and habit stacking to fight distraction, overcome creative blocks, and ensure consistent output for their craft, rather than perpetually waiting for elusive inspiration to strike. Just show up.
And for anyone just generally feeling stuck or maybe overwhelmed by their ambitions?
Definitely. Anyone stuck in a cycle of procrastination, feeling overwhelmed by their goals, or simply struggling to make meaningful progress on something important can benefit immensely. The principles offer a clear, practical pathway forward, step by step. And of course, people with health and fitness goals will find it invaluable for building sustainable routines that actually stick. moving far beyond the common cycle of crash diets or fleeting gym memberships that never last. The principles discussed today, focusing on systems, changing identity, making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, apply to literally your life. Yes, you listening, regardless of your specific goals, profession, or current challenges. Because, at its core, habit formation is a fundamental aspect of all human behavior and the bedrock of all lasting change. It's about building systems that inevitably support your aspirations, no matter how grand or how modest they initially seem.
Okay. As we wrap up this incredibly insightful deep dive into atomic habits, let's really reinforce the core lessons for you, the listener, the absolute most important ideas to carry forward. Remember this above all, focus on systems, not just goals. Build the process. Let your actions flow from who you aspire to be by changing your identity first. Be the person. Understand that repetition is the mother of mastery, so consistency always triumphs over intensity. Show up. Recognize that tiny atomic habits matter infinitely more than fleeting motivation. Small steps count. And perhaps most importantly, consistently track your progress and celebrate consistency, even the smallest wins, to reinforce those positive loops. Acknowledge your effort.
Indeed. Atomic Habits isn't just a book you read and put back on the shelf. It's really a framework you live by. It's truly a life-changing, practical, and remarkably easy-to-apply guide for anyone serious about self-growth. And it consistently receives high praise for a very simple reason. It simply works. The principles are sound.
So, as we conclude this profound deep dive, consider this, something for you to chew on. If success truly comes from those small, consistent votes you cast each day for the type of person you wish to become, what single atomic habit that takes less than 2 minutes to start could you begin today? That would undeniably set your trajectory for a truly remarkable future, even if you don't see the full dramatic results instantly. Just one small thing.
Yeah, and building on that, this raises an even deeper question for you, the listener. How might the concept of the plateau of latent potential apply not just to your personal habits, but maybe to a new skill you're trying to master, a creative project you're passionately working on, or even the subtle, often unseen growth of a relationship? Where are you currently putting in effort consistently and diligently without seeing immediate returns right now? And how can truly trusting the process here empower you to keep going, knowing that breakthroughs are often just around the corner, waiting to compound dramatically? Where can you apply that trust today?